we're getting a lot of WoW transplants or WoW refugees, and I wanted to talk to everybody real quick and pass down some of the things that I've learned as a former WoW person coming into OSRS, and some of the things I kind of wish that people had taught me, or I wish I knew 166 days of gameplay ago. The first thing I'd cover is what the difference between a main or character that can use the GE and a player in World of Warcraft is. In World of Warcraft, you acquire items and you use them, and you either hoard them or disenchant them, but you can't sell them on the GE, obviously, because of soul binding. So a item that you have that's valuable basically loses its value once you use it. And that leads to a hoarding of items. A main in OSRS is a value. It's the value of all of your items together. And what you're supposed to do, and the way you're supposed to play a main, the way the game is balanced around progression-wise, is that you are supposed to sell the set that you are using to buy your next set. You are not supposed to have every set in the game until you're exceedingly wealthy, until you have no use for your money. Until that point, you, let's say, want to farm Perilous Moons. It's a mid-game boss that's a trio of bosses that's very profitable for mid-level characters. And so you go either buy or farm a Barrows set, which is a very early boss. You can do it in almost any gear because of their weird defensive mechanics. So you get some Barrows gear to tank Perilous Moons. Once you're done farming Perilous Moons, either because you got the amount of money you wanted from Perilous Moons, or you got the sets that you wanted from Perilous Moons, you would then sell all of your Barrows gear that you used to get it. Once you are done with your Perilous Moons set, or you sell the stuff you farmed from Perilous Moons, you would buy let's say you wanted to do Kriara, which is a primarily ranged gear dropping boss, and it's fought with range. Let's say you want to do Kriara, you would use all that money to buy a Bofa, or a high accuracy range weapon. And when you're done farming Kriara, you'll sell those items and you'll buy whatever you want to farm your next boss, Phantom Musva or whatever. And the thing to note about all this is that you're compounding the value of your bank. The items that you're selling, you're buying a more valuable item. You're losing 1 to 2% or whatever you lose in market fluctuations, or gain in market fluctuations, as you sell your items to buy more items. But the tiers of items that you're buying as you sell your previous sets increase until your bank just is valuable. And an endgame character's bank is incredibly valuable, but it's not because it farmed 220 million gold on XYZ boss. It's because they tiered up through every armor set, farming a little bit more and a little bit more with each set until they reach that point. It's a strange thing when you're coming from WoW, and it's not exactly intuitive. I would say that it took me a long time to understand that, and by trying to play it the other way, where I just farmed every item and then kept them, it actually became incredibly boring and difficult, because with the farms that were available at my level, I was expecting 2 million gold an hour, and some items are literally billions of gold. So you're talking about farming for months and months and months, just grinding the same content at maximum efficiency just to barely get your next upgrade or whatever. And that's not how it's meant to be done. You're supposed to slowly accumulate the value of your bank until you can afford what's called a reset. And a reset is when you get to a point where you can afford one of the mega rares. Usually it's going to be the Tumigan Shadow or the Twisted Bow, and you take all of your crap, everything you can, scrounging for pennies at the bottom of the couch, and sell it all in the GE, buy just this item and use whatever raggedy crap you can get your hands on as every other piece of gear, and then start farming content with that way better item to then rebuild your bank at twice the speed. And again, redo the progression, but in a super accelerated way, because now you have one of the most powerful items in the game. And that's how a main functions. That's their cycle, and that's not anything like a World of Warcraft character. It's an interesting dichotomy, and it took me a long time to understand that. And Iron Man is obviously very different because you can't interact with the GE. You basically just hoard everything. You're playing it like a World of Warcraft character. You get items, use them to get the next items. I don't recommend selling anything because you'll only find out you need it when you don't have it. The only things that are safe to get rid of are quest items that you no longer need, and there's a super easy way to figure that out. Go talk to the wise old man, quote unquote, in Draenor. He will get rid of shit in your bank that is no longer useful, that's like related to quests or whatever. So that's one thing. That's the primary function of a main versus an Iron Man, and really hopefully help people not get stuck in that quagmire of like, I need to farm 220 million GP at 1 million GP an hour. God damn. No, that's not how you do it. Again, you sell all the shit that you used, so you only ever need to farm, let's say, 20% more than what you're currently sitting on. The next thing I would talk about is the myth of budget gear setups. You see a lot of guides that'll say budget setup for XYZ boss, and what ends up happening is that you end up getting this guide that goes something like, wear Barrow's gear with, a rune crossbow and go fight whatever. And the problem is that, and this isn't intentional, this is probably just these people forgetting what it was like, or really not a lot of people understand the difference, but a 99 character is so much stronger than a level 70 character. When they say recommended level 70, and then they give you some paper mache bullshit to wear that costs $10, it's cheap as shit. They are testing that on their 99 character with the top tier prayers and the best potions in the game. So that's not realistic, and that's not what's going to happen to you. There's two things about it that they kind of overlook and that I really think that we should stress. One, the prayers and the potions are critical. If you're not using super combats, or if you're not using your prayers, and especially you're not using the top tier prayers, you are going to suffer. The difference is massive because they stack. The potions increase your maximum stats, and stats are very heavily calculated in everything, both defensively and offensively. And the prayers increase based on a percentage of your stats. So you use a super combat, which increases your strength from 99 to 119. And then you get the additional 25% on top of that. I think it's 118. And what you end up with, if you do the same thing on a level 70, for example, which is a common mid-game level, is you end up at 85. So that's a 33-point difference, as opposed to where you started at a 29-point difference. So the gap gets even bigger. You're getting less out of the same resources. And this is compounded even worse because you might be not have access to super combats, or you might not have access to divine super combats like they do. And a divine super combat is just a super combat that lasts at the highest level for 10 minutes. Whereas a regular super combat is going to slowly decay. Every 45 seconds, it's going to lose one. So not only are you likely to not boost as much as they do, but you're going to lose what boost you have faster than they do. But that's pretty massive, and something that they kind of gloss over. I watched a Gnome Monkey video about doing Corrupted Gauntlet, and he's basically saying there's no reason to learn tier 2 armor because you're going to have to learn tier 1 eventually anyway, so just send it. The problem is in that video, he's using the top tier prayers. I don't have those. It turns out that even at max level, I am basically on a coin flip as to whether or not I have the damage and defense to survive a Corrupted Gauntlet round with tier 1 armor. Now, that is a skill issue to some extent, but remember that these are guides. They're not for people who are masters of the game, they're for people who are learning things. So telling me that I just need to go send it on a tier 1 armor is a little rough when I don't have the things that you're using in the video. And when you're talking about these prayers, you're not talking about some simple thing. The Rigor and Augury, the two prayers that I'm mostly talking about here, come from one of the first raid that was put in the game, and what is basically very endgame content at a very low drop rate. So an Iron Man is just unlikely to have them in general, and a main used to pay 110 million GP for them, which is more than one of the best range upgrades in the game, which is the Bow of Faradinin, or the BOFA, as you've probably heard. So this concept of just do it like this and budget gear or whatever, they often don't account for those prayers, and when they do, they don't stress it enough. It makes it sound like it's something you can gloss over. So what I would really, really, really recommend, and this is if you're a main, save up and buy the prayers. They should be like priority. They're super cheap right now, I think. I don't really keep up with market trends, but like last time I checked, it was something like 10 million, which is insanely cheap for those. You want to have those as soon as possible. If you're an Iron Man, you want to get into the Royal Titans as soon as you can. Get the welfare prayers. I don't remember the names of them. And remember when you're using them that you also need to activate Steel Skin, your defensive prayer. That's something that a lot of people don't talk about, but the defensive bonus of the budget prayers is actually lower than it should be, because you can also activate Steel Skin. So make sure you do that, because the defensive aspect is also very big. And if you don't understand, the way defense works in this game is it doesn't reduce your damage, it reduces the chances of them hitting you. That's why when you see in these videos of these budget guides, when the guy makes a mistake, he gets hit for 0. Even though he missed the prayer or he stood in the fire when he's trying to show you a mess up or whatever, it ends up being that he basically gets hit for nothing because his defensive stats are so high that it's unlikely that the enemy is going to roll against him. They've only got like a 40-60% hit chance. Versus you, they're going to have, with the lower level prayers, with the lower level stats, and the lower level potions, and the lower level gear, you are going to be hit way more often. So when you make a mistake, you are going to be punished for it significantly more often than this guy, the guy making the guide. And I just can't stress that enough. That's really, you need to understand how important those prayers are. You need to understand that spending prayer points and prayer potions on these prayers is worth it. It sucks if you're an Iron Man, getting your hand on prayer potions is hard, but learning how to do the 3 prayer flick, where you're turning on 3 prayers and then switching them when you have to switch, is a super important skill and is a big barrier to getting out of the middle game. The other thing I would like to talk about is just generally guides. Guides are bad. A lot of the guides are bad. And that sounds provocative, but some of them will actually make your progress in the game harder. And there's no culprit worse than Zulrah. If you watch Zulrah guides, it looks like you need to memorize 4 to 6 sets of 9 combinations of places and attacks that are anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes long with variations, and you need to switch gear and you need to have these items and you blah 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 blah. It's very, very complex, and it's a lot of information, and there's this little spreadsheet add-on they're going to hit you with that you need to use, and so on and so forth. That is so overcomplicating one of the simplest bosses in the game that it's borderline offensive how bad Zulrah guides are. And I would implore the people who made them to take them down, because not just me, I've talked to people in my clan and other people. I showed them a good guide. There's a good guide. It's called Rotationless Zulrah. I'll link it in the description. It teaches you how to do the boss in a very simple and easy to understand way that doesn't require you remember all this crap and all these very specific instructions. And everybody I've shown it to has gone from being terrified of doing Zulrah to putting Zulrah on farm. I went in literally one day. Not joking, this is not a exaggeration. The morning of, I couldn't clear Zulrah. That evening, I almost got the Grandmaster speed time. The same gear, the same character. That's the difference that the knowledge makes in this case, and that's how negatively impacted by the information from other guides I was. Because it had convinced me that the only way to do Zulrah was to memorize these complex patterns or add interacting with a spreadsheet into an already stressful boss. And that's not a good thing. You do not need to memorize anything about Zulrah. Most of the game's mechanics, you don't need to memorize these super complex specific actions. Stand here until he does this, then do this, then do this. Stand here, move to this tile. Look at my tile highlighted. My tile pack, it shows you all the places you got to click. You open up a guide for a boss and you see 600 colored tiles on the floor and go, Jesus, what the fuck is this? And it's impossible to comprehend that much data presented in a small amount of time. And it makes these things seem super complicated when most of the time they break down into really simple instructions. And when you're taught in a way where you're told what to do and when to do it, you lose your ability to improvise. You can't account for the outlier situations that your small mistakes are going to cause. And it also means that it's harder for you to understand what mistakes you made and how to improve on them. You're going to see things like in the Alchemical Hydra guides, they just tell you to go from one tile to the other at specific times. After he does his 4th attack and sprays acid, move to this tile, blah, 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 blah. Why am I moving to that tile? Why am I doing these vents in this order? What the fuck do vents do? Why is it that when I fuck up, he doesn't change colors? How do I make him change colors? Can I do the red one first? I kind of hate that one. Why am I taking damage even though I'm not standing in the fire? There's all sorts of shit that these guides don't really tell you because they're just giving you this rote memorization, stand here, do this thing. And it, to a person who's done the content 2,000 times, that's what it is. That's their engagement with the process. But for us who are doing it for the first time, and for us who are doing bosses for the first time, this is not a way for us to learn these things. It's not an in-depth knowledge. It's just it's a bot. It's a script. And what ends up happening when you learn Zulrah is that when you first start, you're winging it. You're doing a lot of weird stuff. You're standing all over the place. You're kind of on this tile, you're kind of on that tile. It's whatever. You're moving here, you're moving there. There's areas that you're safe and there's areas that are dangerous, so you don't have like specific places that you stand. But over time, as you clear it, your 200th and 5,000th and whatever times, you're gonna find that you become very habitual and you go to the same tiles and you do the same things at the same time. That's what they're showing you in these guides. You need to go through the early phases when you're sloppy and weird and you're adjusting to the scenario. So be careful when you're looking at guides. Look for guides that explain to you the mechanics and how things work, and don't just tell you where to go and where to stand on this tile, do this, do that, do that. A really specific note about Fire Cape. A lot of you are getting into that point where you're doing Fire Cape. It is a very intimidating and very challenging thing. It seems incredibly hard. It is incredibly hard. 2.5 hours of high focus is difficult in any scenario, but the guides online are bad. And really, the one I would recommend is Josh Drive Hayes, that guy who does the series that's something like Your MMO Sucks or whatever. He wears a vest. He got his, I don't know if he started as an old school RuneScape streamer or whatever, but he made a Fire Cape guide, and it was really good because it didn't get bogged down in stand here, do this specifically. It was pretty general and explained what was going on, not what to do. And a really brief explanation of your Fire Cape, if you follow these general guidelines, you'll get it. Basically, everything appears in a sequence. So a bat appears, then a second bat, then 2 bats make a blob, then a blob and 2 bats, then 2 blobs, and then a ranger. So you see they combine. The tiers combine. So when you have 2 bats, the next thing you're getting is a blob. When you have 2 blobs, the next thing you're getting is a ranger. When you have 2 rangers, the next thing you're getting is a melee. The 2 melees, the next thing you're getting is a major, and the 2 majors, the next thing you're getting is Jad. So it's a increasing tier. You're basically never going to want to do anything but pray against the major. They will kill you if you don't. So when there's a ranger and a major out at the same time, you pray mage, kill the ranger. When there's no major, you want to pray ranged because you can body block the melee guy. You never want to let bats hit you under any circumstance, even if you're praying melee, because they drain whatever damage they do +1 from your prayer. So if they hit you for 0, they drain 1 prayer. Prayer is super valuable. Look up the sounds and animations of Jad. That's going to get you killed if you don't know those things. And do not, under any circumstance, follow the following pieces of advice. Tank the healers while you're killing Jad, and just kill Jad through the healers. If somebody tells you to do those 2 things, unless you are rocking really good gear and really high stats, that advice is not for you. If your defense is 65 or 70, you are not tanking the healers. They will tear your ass apart. You are going to be fighting Jad for a very long time, and you're at the end of a lot of waves. Unless you came through this somehow with all your food, you are not tanking the healers. And I wouldn't even suggest that, because even in that case, because eating is going to be another action that you need to take while worrying about prayers. So what you really should do on your first clear is get the healers all roped up and take them out of his line of sight, kill them, and then go deal with Jad. There's so many people I've seen just say stupid things like, oh, just kill him through the healers. Like, don't pull the healers and just attack him while they're healing him. No, unless you're rocking solid gear and high levels, that's not going to happen. They are just going to heal to max, and then you have to deal with another healer wave. And the other one of just tank the healers. I see so many people say that. That's just people who are high level not realizing how incredibly different the experience of having 99 defense or 85 defense versus having 65 or 70. It's night and day. My 2 accounts, my level 70 defense character with the best defensive armor in the game gets torn apart compared to my Iron Man who has 99 defense and has dog shit armor. It's completely different experience. So don't let people convince you to do that. You'll just waste 2 hours of your time. Anyway, good luck. Don't get scammed. Give me all your money. I'll I'll trim your armor.